Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Solid Edge ST9 webcast today. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning, or maybe afternoon for some of you. My name is Andy Dio. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Ceratec, and your presenter today is Daniel Rubio. For those of you that have worked with us for a while, you probably know Daniel personally. He's a great AE and a Solid Edge expert, so you're in good hands. We're going to have you online here for about 30 to 40 minutes. Daniel's going to try to squeeze a lot of information in this time slot. So at any time, if you have questions at all, please feel free to enter them in the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them in the Q&A section of our webcast. And also, I'd like to remind everyone, after you log off the webcast, there'll be a short 5-question survey that pops up. Please take just a couple minutes to fill that out. That's going to help us out a lot in terms of knowing if the content was valuable to you and help us with future webinars where we can make sure that we tailor the content to what you're looking for. With that, I now pass the presentation over to Mr. Daniel Rubio. Daniel?
Thanks a lot. So like Andy said, my name is Daniel Rubio. I've been an application engineer with Ceratec for almost 5 years now. And just a quick background on me, I got both my bachelor's and master's degrees, both in mechanical engineering from the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Go Knights, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. ST9 is the 29th release of Solid Edge, and this year's release is all about expanding your horizons. It brings about new cloud and data management capabilities, and of course still expanding on the unique flexibility and excellence in 3D CAD it always has. So let's break the areas down so that we can take a tour of what ST9 brings. First up, cloud-enabled design, but on your terms. Now, cloud means different things to different people. It could mean file storage, it could mean mobility, or maybe just rain for some people. But lately we're seeing it with almost all software, including CAD, because it can certainly bring benefits, which is what Siemens has really focused on here with ST9, the benefits that it can bring, but without all of the concerns. So what are these benefits? CAD that follows you wherever you go. Being able to share CAD files easily across teams and sites. And CAD that's reliable, even when a cloud internet connection is brought into the equation. And you'll be happy to see here that ST9 delivers in all of these areas. Again, ST9 can follow you wherever you go. You now have an option to have your license held on the cloud so you can simply log in and start designing. But guess what else? Your personalized settings are also loaded when you do this. It's pretty awesome. Question here, how many of you have ever been annoyed with trying to get a maintenance pack? Some of you are probably shaking your head. Well, now you can install them from the cloud whenever you want. And your designs can be accessed from anywhere. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this. ST9 integrates with the popular cloud storage services like Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, and Box. So of course, any changes you make at one site are always synchronized with all the other sites. But Solid Edge's integration locks all your files during edits. So it definitely keeps track of your collaboration and make sure you're not overwriting anything. And we'll talk more about this later on as well. Finally, reliable cloud. Even if your internet goes down, Solid Edge does not. And keep in mind that includes access to files since they're still local. And since the program itself is also still local, you're not relying on internet speed at all. So the performance is still as fast as ever. All right, next up, fast and flexible 3D modeling. But before we jump into ST9, I want to point out some of the user interface improvements that we'll see in some of the demos. First of all, more consistency with Microsoft Office and what we're familiar with in Word and Outlook, for example. We also now have tabbed documents inside of Solid Edge, which is very, very nice. It's a much easier way of switching and working with multiple files. There's also support for high-resolution monitors, so for those of you with fancy new 4Ks, you can still get the best visual experience. And there's also academic themes for people with different skill levels to help anyone learn. All right, so let's take a look at a new software offering from Siemens called Catchbook. and how it beautifully complements Solid Edge. Sketchbook is basically a new drawing app for anyone that wants to capture their ideas and simple sketches anywhere, anytime. You can think of it as a digital back of the napkin, if you will, only the napkin is now your smartphone or tablet. So the first step is to, for example, take a picture of an orange, set it as your background of your sketch, and start sketching freely, just like you would on a pencil and paper. But there's another mode that helps you make precise lines and arcs. So if you sketch and trace around the orange, Sketchbook will automatically place actual arcs and lines. And you can even put a radius to define the average size of an orange, for example. Even better, if you, for example, freehand an arc inside of another arc, it'll actually snap concentric to that arc like you see in this image here. And trimming away anything you don't want is as simple as scribbling over it like you would with a good old eraser. You can do things like mirror to get the full part modeled and sketched out. And then once you're done, you can bring that right into Solid Edge 2D drafting and use the Create 3D tool and Synchronous to easily build your 3D model. So here you can see the 3D slicer in action. You can also use motors and gear relationships to simulate the juices traction. Anybody thirsty for some OJ yet? So whether you're new to CAD or established, this is a great new way to let your company grow into things like 3D visualization, simulation, and manufacturing. And the finished product here, by the way, is the Soul Tabletop Juicer designed by ZoomX. I don't know about you, but this new approach makes art and engineering design pretty easy and even fun. Now let's move on to the unique power of Solid Edge Synchronous technology. You definitely should, but if you're not familiar with it, it's a design approach that's all about combining the speed and simplicity of direct modeling with the flexibility and control of traditional history-based parametric design. Here we're going to work with this ZoomX Soul Juicer to show off not just synchronous, but the ability to use both synchronous and ordered together for a hybrid design. Now here, this gear housing's handle was made as an ordered loft, but the mounts on each end were done as synchronous features. So let's say we need to straighten out this handle. You can see it's a little bit crooked. So we'll change the synchronous mounts and see how the ordered handle reacts. Notice as we scroll back and see these synchronous features and modify them, we can still see the ordered loft in the middle in a ghost translucent mode. This is a huge enhancement. There's no more flipping back and forth between the two modes and guessing on how the changes are going to look when you're done. Multi-body modeling is another powerful tool that's a lot better than ST9 too. With one step, you can add cuts to multiple design bodies, as you see here, whether they're active or inactive. And even if you go ahead and mirror these cut features, they actually remember what bodies to cut. This is really intuitive and smart and saves a lot of time. Next, there's also a 3D sketch point that's been added. This was actually used in the lofted handle between the two end mounts, as you see. And we just aligned the two ends, but now we need to move that 3D sketch point exactly in the middle. So we just simply zero out the X and Y values to center that. And we can also increase the bow on the handle by just changing the Z value. Last thing here, we want to widen the center of the handle. So we can simply dynamically adjust that dimension. So you can really see the power that all this has with this hybrid approach of synchronous and ordered. Let's focus on another area of this juicer. The peels get dumped into a plastic bin here in the front of the body, but instead of this being a fancy, expensive material, we can actually just use a glossy plastic fascia for the front. Now this piece has to exactly match the bin's contour, right, and actually snap into the mounting holes. So how would you do this? In ST9, in the assembly, you can see we now have direct access to faces of other parts. So we can simply match that contour exactly by just thickening that front face. So there's no more need for inner part copies anymore. Just pick and go. Now let's finish up this fascia. We'll add these mounting pins. We can do that by creating a new design body for this fascia part, and then just use a Boolean operation to basically join or merge those two bodies into one single solid. But hold on, this back piece over here for the spout needs to actually be cut. So how hard is this? Well, we can just drag the face right through the other side and you're done. That's synchronous for you. Now let's take a look at the new solid sweep command that's been added in ST9. Now this gear housing we were looking at before, as you can imagine, needs to be aesthetically pleasing, right? But it also needs to be functional. So we want to add a groove, for example, to this handle. So you can add the solid sweep to add or remove material from features to get really complex designs like cutting guide slots or a drum style clamp cam or even simulating machining tools. So we'll cut out that groove by just sweeping the construction solid along that curved path, quick and easy. All right, let's see the new clash detection tool for sheet metal problems, so you can catch issues before the manufacturing stage, so no one has to get yelled at so much. Here the heat shield was flattened, but you can see Solid Edge detected a clash. So some flanges are overlapping, so here we can now use Geometry Inspector to show us where exactly those flanges are bending across each other. So here we found the problem piece right here. And again, fixing this is ridiculously easy using synchronous technology. We just use the steering wheel, push it back, and get rid of that clash problem we had. So all in all, lots of new synchronous and other modeling enhancements in ST9 definitely make you and your job a lot easier. Let's talk about even more enhancements though. We just saw the awesome new hybrid experience of combining history-based with synchronous. This was actually a top user request, probably by many of you. We also saw various other modeling enhancements like multi-body, 3D sketch, mirror, design intent, and in-context design. But there's a lot more that we didn't even see. Multiple faces can now be replaced in one shot. Hole features can be created from a boolean with a threaded shaft, for example, to cut out the holes for the bolts you see here. And also with synchronous sheet metal, you can now create contour flanges from the edges of multiple parts. And the material library is also much improved. It now has property validation and also some general organization improvements. The improved hybrid modeling experience we just saw is definitely a hit. This is customer Kimball International. They're actually recognized as one of Fortune's most admired and Forbes' best in America. If you haven't tried synchronous yet, now is the time. You can see it's not just one method or the other. It can be both, synchronous and ordered at the same time in the same model. So whatever's easiest and quickest for you. As I'm sure you're aware, the 3D printing world keeps growing, and not only for prototyping, but also for end product manufacturing, whether it's a plastic part for a hobby airplane or even 3D printed metal parts. I saw a titanium 3D printer a while ago. It was incredible. Now, we already know with Solid Edge we can design just about any part we'd like, but now ST9 makes it much easier to get these parts 3D printed. For example, this part here should not be placed in a dishwasher, but instead of just printing that on with some red ink, we can actually design it into the part itself very easily by adding text and symbols as an emboss feature right onto the plastic. This is another nice enhancement in ST9, being able to pull block symbols right out of a draft file straight into our sketch. ST9 makes 3D printing really a reality, whether you own a 3D printer or not. You can click to order your parts online right from Solid Edge. It even gives you a preview, which has tolerance control, before it sends it off to the Microsoft 3D Builder app. As you see here, this preview basically gives you a live look at the part. You can spin it around and zoom. And this 3D Builder app is really awesome. You can virtually drop it on the table to see how it settles to print it in the best position. So keep in mind the beauty of all this is that in a matter of hours or worst case a few days if you have to ship it, you can have the prototype or even the real part in your hands to see and touch. Nowadays it's super fast and economical to make prototypes to test for fit and function. All right, let's talk about model simplification. I'm sure most of you have some intense competition, right? So losing your proprietary designs can turn you from a market leader into a market follower. The enclosure command in ST9 is quicker and easier to protect your trade secrets by simplifying out a lot of the details and parts and assemblies that you don't want to give out. But you can also use this for improving graphical performance on your machine, or even to make quick calculations of the amount of stock material that you'll need for machine parts. You just pick the faces, and SolidEdge surrounds them with a cylinder or a box. And then back at the assembly level, you can then display those components in the simplified form that you just made. Another area that ST9 has enhanced is the variable table. This lets you control all your model parameters with functions. So looking at some of the new options across the top here, the first button is List View, which is a default view that we're used to. But in ST9, custom sorting has been added. So just like in Excel, you can now add multiple sorting fields, like first by name and then by type, which is much faster to find the variables you want. Right next to that button is Structured View. This gives you a feature listing for the part you're looking at, basically like Pathfinder. More functions and variables are available now, such as pi, which was a large customer request, but there's also if, then else logic. So for example, you can set up a logic function for if the distance between the feet is greater than 230 millimeters, then another supporting foot is added. There's also a function wizard, which gives you even more math, trig, and logical expressions. You can also do conversions, and there's also better support for handling different units. Also, the rule editor has now more capabilities for things like setting limits or ranges for dimensions. So you can see this new variable table gives you much better control when you're adding automation to your designs. All right, so let's jump in and take a look at even more new assembly features. Some of you work with very complex and crowded assembly, so it's not very easy seeing what's what all the time, especially if you have a lot of relationships involved. But ST9 brings lots of tools to get the job done faster. So here we'll focus on a few systems of this ZoomX Sol juicer again to show off some of these new exciting ST9 enhancements. Here you can see a rendered cutaway view. So first thing we'll do is open up the motor assembly. And here we'll use the new graphic display toggle to basically declutter the display. Notice it makes all the surrounding bodies translucent, so we can zone in on the components we're actually trying to work on. Now this here is the Assembly Relationship Manager. It's very intuitive, just like Pathfinder. It contains the entire assembly's relationships. You can use all kinds of different sorting methods and filters based on relationship type, any component name, and even status to work with all these relationships. Notice we can filter for relationships with missing geometry. But the best part is you can fix out-of-date or broken relationships here too. So we can, for example, unsuppress this last relationship and rename the variable bearing offset. Once we do that, we simply double-click it, and that puts us right into the relationship editor. And in here, we can quickly fix the problem. In this case, rotating around and taking a look, we just need to pick a different face for this offset relationship that we had defined. Now let's use the new isolate display option to quickly focus on what we want next here. With one click, this new toggle hides everything but this housing part that we want to look at here. Now once we in-place activate to this part, notice this first board already has a thread, but we need to duplicate that over to the other boards. So we just select the thread feature and use duplicate to copy those threads to the other boards using the coordinate systems, which is very easy. And to get out, we just click the restore button. Now back at the assembly level, remember I mentioned the duplicate command now allows block sketches from parts. So let's duplicate this footpad part across the top and front housing pieces by just using the same sketches that we used to create the features at the part level. This is awesome. We're no longer limited to patterning on a single plane. And let's make one more change here. We can see this hole is a little too close to the edge, so we'll change this location, which is at the part level, and immediately see the pad update at the top level assembly. So very easy in-context design. All right, now just because a component is duplicated in an assembly doesn't mean it's always going to have the same function in all the places. So in ST9, you can have unique properties of each occurrence using non-graphic data, so things like notes, assembly instructions, or even maintenance procedures. So here we duplicated that single pad part across different locations, but each occurrence has a different purpose. So let's enter in some custom information here. to the occurrence properties. In this case, reference ID and type are what designate each occurrence's category as either a foot pad, a foot plug, or a plug. And then notice also the notes property here lets you add any other information like assembly instructions or any custom properties too. And another big benefit here is you can create and save custom queries for this. So this makes it really easy to search for specific components you want. You can pick any of the properties you defined, like type in this case. And once that query is set up, you just double click it and those components are shown right away. So very, very easy. But we can't forget about drawings, right? So let's go ahead and create a new drawing from this part. And we'll create or place a saved view onto the drawing sheet. And now we'll add in a parts list. And as you see here, it actually includes these custom properties that we defined specific to each occurrence of those parts. So notice the parts list here shows each of the 6 occurrences, each one having its own reference ID and type. And it's often these little things in life that make the difference. Here, customer Bird Technologies, who pride themselves on designing the world's most reliable radio frequency products, they're really loving that new Isolate display tool. Drawings are still king though, and Solid Edge is still the king of drawings. Let's see what ST9 brings us for drawings. When you create drawings of long parts like this shaft, showing the brake lines precisely is very important, right? ST9 brings key point snap capability, so you can build in associativity to the model geometry, so any changes you make are going to be automatically updated in all those drawing views. Now, let's say you place some views of a part and they're full of hidden lines. Ugly, right? Well, now in ST9 you can simply select multiple views and turn off the hidden lines for all those views in one shot. You can even change the view orientations after you place them. And of course, all of the dependent views also update based on their projection angle. Symmetric diameters have also been improved. The text position automatically alternates and the dimensions are grouped together. There's a new tolerance table, so if you have a drawing with a bunch of dimensions with fit class tolerances, this table automatically populates all those standard tolerances for the letter class fits, which can be very, very time consuming, so you won't have to reference that engineering handbook so much now. Another enhanced feature is paper print, so you can now get a large preview area for each drawing sheet, and you can zoom and pan around each sheet and even print a specific area of the sheets. Another top 10 user request here, draft settings can now be stored in an external file, so you can easily administer many machines. And finally, multi-core processing for drawing view updates. This is awesome. This is going to be a huge time saver. Initial studies are showing about 28% time saving. Remember, we can only cover so much of what's new here, so let's talk about just a few more of the top modeling enhancements. Spiral curve, drag and drop appearances at the assembly level, which has a much better preview too. The piping environment is much improved, and the ability to reorient sheet metal flat patterns to give you much more accurate costing are just a few of the top ones. Now, beyond modeling, design work for a lot of industries and applications should definitely be incorporating simulation. In ST9, meshing performance has improved a ton. Initial studies are showing about 4 times time saving. Boundary conditions can now be suppressed, so you can do what-if scenarios a lot easier. And there's also now an option to maximize quad elements over tries, and that gives you much nicer rectangular surface meshes. If your team isn't doing any simulation, or if you are with another program, I highly suggest you reach out to us about Solid Edge simulation. It's really a huge bargain because you're getting industry-leading FEMAP and NX Nastran technology from Siemens in here. And having simulation with your design process can really save your company a ton of time and money. We covered additive manufacturing with 3D printing before, but of course we can't forget about good old subtractive manufacturing, right? CAMWorks, which is Solid Edge's best embedded CAM solution, brings lots of new enhancements. Let's just see a few. Automatic feature recognition has been improved, has a new simplified features option. And what this does is breaks prismatic features apart for more efficient machining. You can now allow longer tools to be substituted after a short tool reaches its limit for deep features. Default strategies can be edited directly from the CAM interface. There's a new volume mill pre-drilling option, which eliminates the need for expensive setter cutting end mills. There's a new gun drilling cycle that lets you machine very, very deep holes of more than 10:1 length to diameter ratio. And the tool management tree has been added to the Pathfinder. Now, the other leading CAM solution is CAM Express, which has also been improved, of course. And then projects workpiece can be generated in the background, so you can work on other parts while that one calculates. The graphical toolpath editor has been improved, so you can relink toolpaths that have had some portion cut away from it. Corner smoothing for Z-level and flow cut operations are improved. They give you much better surface finishes. There's an automatic cut pattern direction option for follow periphery, which means the path is going to automatically switch from inward to outward or vice versa, depending on which option gives you a better job for that cut level. Floor wall operations are much faster now, and there's also new boss milling and thread milling options, and also chamfers for holes. All right, let's talk about a very important topic, PDM, or Product Data Management. You really need to get with this if you're not managing your data. How do you like the sound of instantaneous searches, easy revisions, easy release management, and even optional cloud-based vaulting? This is all available for all levels of Solid Edge: design and drafting, foundation, classic, and premium. So let's take a look. This demo here is going to focus on these new built-in data management capabilities in ST9, which of course help you manage your fast-growing amounts of data. To make your everyday tasks much easier, there's lots of new features like unique document numbers, instant searches, easy revision, and release management. You can actually perform very fast searches directly from Windows Explorer. You can actually filter your data by file name or standard or even custom properties. So you don't have to waste time opening different files to try and find what you're looking for. We can search on the title property, for example, first for motors here, or then for juicers. And there's also preview graphics as well. So opening this assembly in the Design Manager utility, by the way, this is what's replacing the Revision Manager, for those of you that are familiar with that. So here we can review and edit property data, rename files, create revisions, and release documents too. And notice how quickly we can open Solid Edge since it's tightly integrated. Now we know we need to modify a part and also fix a clearance issue on the housing. So this is a vendor part actually. So what we want to do here is check the folders where we have saved documents and see if we can find an alternative component. Instead of looking through all those files though for that vendor, we can just apply another filter. So we can add the title property to search, and then we can even add the word plug to that search. So typing that in, notice all of our search results get trimmed down a lot, and we can select the individual results and see a preview of those too. But let's say that none of those meet our needs, so what we want to do now is create a new plug altogether. And with this new tool, file names for new documents are assigned automatically for you. So let's take advantage of this and replace the plug with the new one. So we type in the document number here, and notice the file name is automatically created. And we can give a new title for the document, of course. Now clicking Save gives you an error actually. It's telling us here that the document number is already being used. So notice these built-in data management capabilities are really making sure you're not going to have any ugly problems down the road. So now with the new part, we can just change the dimension with Synchronous and fix that issue. Now let's take a look at this housing again. We want to make another change to this housing, but notice we get another warning message. Solid Edge is telling us that this part has already been released, so we can't edit it, of course. So what we want to do is create a new revision. First, we need to figure out if this is used in any other assemblies, though. So we can use the Where Used tool here to find all the other documents that have some link to this part. As you can see, the searches are very fast, but the only other part is a drawing. You can set the character to whatever company standard you use. In this case, we'll just change from A to B. And one thing that's critical to note here is the associated draft file is automatically revised too. The next new awesome tool is Pack and Go. This lets you pack up your design to send to a supplier or a customer, for example, for a review or something. You can include your drawings and simulation as well. And we talked a little bit about this before, but we can now use cloud services like Dropbox or OneDrive to share our files. Now, don't worry, all of this can still work with your existing local and network infrastructure. But in this example, we'll just drag the new zip file into Dropbox, so now it's saved securely on the cloud and readily available for sharing with anybody, basically. And if you're working with a distributed design team, you can copy the Solid Edge files for an entire design project into Dropbox. And like I said before, it does have a locking mechanism that makes sure there's no accidental bumping heads when you're working with your files. As you can see, users are informed who else is currently working on a file that you open, so you can't overwrite somebody else's work. So hopefully this will reduce some of the bickering across cubicles. So lots of data management capability out of the box with ST9 now, but more importantly, no need for additional IT resources. There's no SQL, no databases, and it all lets you get a much better control of your data and speed up the everyday design task. The new Design Manager utility is definitely getting great reception from customers. This is Matt Johnson here from PAC Worldwide, who's a global leader in the manufacturing of protective packaging, talking here about the valuable new release management capabilities that ST9 gives. So all these new tools really give a lot of value, especially when you use them with other tools like View and Markup and the mobile viewers. But if your needs grow, the beauty is that once you have this set up, everything will be organized so you can grow into full product lifecycle management. And this is where Teamcenter steps in, the industry standard in PLM. And ST9 brings lots of new enhancements to this as well. Active Workspace is all about streamlined access to product and process data. And it's now embedded directly in Solid Edge. That's big news. There's a dedicated ribbon bar with all the tools for easier tasks like searching and filtering. You can also preview, apply rules, and retrieve drawings automatically. You can also access a panel that gives you all the information for your Teamcenter session. And the check-in interface has been revamped too. Some more enhancements, better visibility of properties, full access to Teamcenter properties, and also mapping them to Solid Edge. Multiple revisions of the same part can be opened, which is really good for making comparisons. And also new workflows can be initiated right from Solid Edge, so you don't have to work in a separate window. Also, the cache assistant lets us see what files we have in our local storage. And there's a new create package like we saw before. Now, if you're thinking that your company already requires this type of data management, ask us about Teamcenter Rapid Start today, or at least tell your manager to reach out to us. This is full Teamcenter, but just pre-configured for you for a much faster and cheaper deployment. And finally, let's talk about Solid Edge's all-around flexibility that helps you work much better. ST9 brings a holy grail, associative drawing migration. Let's take a look. Parts, assemblies, and drawings are all intelligently transferred to Solid Edge very easily. But supporting users is also very important. So Solid Edge has familiar interface themes, tutorials, and a great command finder too. And there's also additional migration tools for Pro, Creo, and Inventor as well. Great feedback here from Group SEB, the name behind Krups, Tefal, and others. They really have the capability for importing their drawings and have them associated with those SolidWorks parts and assemblies. Now, any of you have a Surface or another tablet? Well, if you do and you haven't taken advantage of mobile CAD yet, you should definitely start with ST9. You can run full-blown Solid Edge on your Surface or another Windows tablet. It has advanced multi-touch finger gestures and stylus recognition, and there's viewer apps for most of the other mobile devices too. This is really amazing if you're on the road visiting a client or even on the shop floor. These really come in handy. So that's Solid Edge ST9. Cloud capabilities when you need them, flexible and easy access to Solid Edge with cloud-based licensing if you want, along with those user preferences, software updates, and collaboration. You can also get industry-leading modeling tools and also forget about the constraints that traditional CAD has with synchronous technology. You can take advantage of built-in data management for instantaneous searches, easy revisions, easy release management, and optional cloud-based vaulting even. You can get up and running in just under an hour actually and have the flexibility to grow into full PLM with Teamcenter later on. And with the best data migration tools and the most flexible licensing, it's never been easier to get going in Solid Edge, whether you're an established business, a startup, a student, or even new to CAD altogether. Now is the time to move to Solid Edge. So make sure you benefit from all these great new features by scheduling update training class today. And if you think you're up for it, why not have a go at becoming a Solid Edge certified professional, which is available online right now. So thank you for your time, and I hope to see you at Solid Edge University in Indianapolis next month. So ask us for details. Now we'll open up for any questions.
All right, thanks, Daniel. Great job trying to pack all of this information into a time frame of about 30 minutes. So I know there's probably a lot of questions out there, so at this time, please feel free to type in your questions into the control panel or the chat box, and Daniel will address them as they come in. Now, while we're waiting for the questions to come in, I do want to remind everyone that when you log off, please just take a couple minutes to fill out the survey. It will help us a lot. And also, if you have any questions that you don't want to ask here and you want to, just a one-on-one type of conversation, feel free to reach out to me or to Daniel. We'll be more than happy to help you out. All right, so we have a few questions that came in, Dan. And I think you addressed this earlier in your presentation, but please go ahead and talk about it a little bit. So Jeremiah asks, when on a subscription, do you always have to be internet connected to use the software? What happens if I'm offline and want to work?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. So if you're on a subscription, you do have the cloud-based option, but you only need to be connected to pull that license. So once you, as long as you're online, you get that license, you fire up Solid Edge, you're good to go. You can, disconnect, go to the middle of nowhere, and keep working. And that Solid Edge instance just stays open until you close it, of course. If you close it, then yeah, you'll need another internet connection to get your license again.
Okay, hope that answers your question, Jeremiah. I have a couple questions that came in from Corey. First question is, has coordinate dimension been updated?
Coordinate dimensions, that is a great question. They did do a couple of small enhancements, nothing major. In ST8, there was a few bigger things with that, but they did automate some of that. So yeah, I can definitely get with you offline to talk about that more.
Okay, and this is I guess this is a follow-up question from Corey. It seems auto jog has caused problems for them in the past.
Okay, yeah, that's yeah, we can definitely talk about that offline as well.
Okay. Doesn't seem like we have any more question that comes in. So at this time, I do thank everyone for being online with us here today. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a great weekend, and we hope to see you on a future webcast. Thanks, everyone.